A show created by the fans, for the fans. We are your home for Ohio State football coverage all year long. The Scarlet and Gray Podcast, a Network 216 production. Live weekdays on the Network 216 YouTube channel. Send us all your questions and comments on Twitter at VSG_podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Dalton, and Nick Leisure.
Buckeye Nation, good evening and welcome back to episode number 47 of the Scarlet and Gray Podcast. I am Tyler Johnson, joined as always by my brothers Nick Leisure, Jordan Dalton. Gentlemen, how are you guys doing on this fine 60-degree Monday here in Ohio?
Not too bad. It's been pretty good. Just actually got back from a walk and it was wonderful. So hopefully the weather stays warm because last time this happened, it snowed the next day. So just keeping it going, you know?
Yeah, dude, it's great out. Had the dogs outside. I was just sitting outside in the back patio for like a half hour today while I was eating dinner. It was great. Really nice. It's nice to be able to do that in February.
Dude, it is. Ohio is just something else, man. Like this weekend we had snow, and then today we get 60 degrees. Not complaining about the 60 degrees, but geez, would love if we could make up our minds on the weather. That's for sure. But there's plenty to get into tonight. We haven't met for the first time in been about 2 weeks, I would say. So we're back to some Buckeye talk. Before we get to any of that, just want to make sure, guys, as always, just take a quick second, drop a like onto that video. Subscribe if you are brand new to the channel. We are on the push for 3,000 subscribers. We can't get there without your help. Free to subscribe, free to like the video. So we ask that you just do those two main things. We really would appreciate that. As always, the Scarlet and Gray Podcast and Network 216 is proud to be a partner with Homage Athletic Apparel. We know we got some Cleveland Guardians fans on the channel, and they just released the Cleveland Guardians starter jacket. So you want to make sure you go and get yours today. These aren't going to last long. The starter jackets never last long at Homage. So make sure you guys go get that today. Again, it's homage.com. If you're a first-time customer on Homage, just put in your email address, sign in for their email updates, and you can get 15% off your first order. So take advantage of that today. That's homage.com. Gentlemen, the Buckeyes have finally finalized their coaching staff. And I say finally because it seems like we've been really kind of waiting a while for this. We hired Bill O'Brien as offensive coordinator for about 2 weeks, and then he decided to take the job at Boston College. Before we kind of get into his replacement, first off, what are your guys' thoughts on Bill O'Brien heading to Boston College? Again, no one really expected it. It makes sense for him and his family, especially considering coaching with the Patriots the last couple of years. He's got some one of his sons is dealing with a health issue, and the best doctors are in Boston. So what are your guys' thoughts on Bill O'Brien taking the Boston College job?
Yeah, it makes sense for him personally. And I don't think Ryan Day was about to stop that opportunity. Bill O'Brien would have been a great asset for the team, but this job wasn't open when he took the job with Ohio State. So I think the opportunity came up. It was a better fit for him and his family. I believe his family was actually going to be living in Boston area, and he was going to be working out of Columbus. So I think it just was the perfect storm for him, and Ohio State still had time to continue their coaching search, and then we ultimately brought in Chip Kelly. So we'll talk about that later in the podcast. But honestly, it didn't surprise me when it happened after reading all of the things that led up to it. So good for him. And honestly, I think it worked out better for us. So,
yeah, I mean, anytime you get an opportunity to go be a head coach somewhere, it's kind of hard to pass. And then especially with all the family, and he's familiar with the Boston area already. Like Jordan already said, it just kind of all made sense for him to kind of take that route. And yeah, luckily the Buckeyes had a contingency plan ready to go, and they didn't really waste any time after we heard about Bill O'Brien. So pretty excited to talk about Chip Kelly, though.
Yeah, I think with Bill O'Brien, originally when I heard this, like before even knowing any of the background to it, I was thinking, okay, why would he go to Boston College? Because if he's at Ohio State even for 1 year, 2 at the max, he's going to get a top job somewhere because, I mean, you look at it. It's what happens when Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin were offensive coordinators at Alabama. Obviously, Bill O'Brien got hired back to the Patriots after being Alabama's offensive coordinator. So I thought, why would he do this? And then you learn more about the family aspect of things. It just made a lot of sense. So wish him all the best for sure. Hopefully, it'd be cool to see him turn Boston College around. That might be a sneaky team if you're looking for one in EA Sports College Football 25. But you guys brought up the new hire, Chip Kelly. I don't think anybody could have picked, and you could make the argument, listen, Bill O'Brien would have been a great fit here, but bringing in Chip Kelly, if you would have told me 5 years ago Chip Kelly would be Ohio State's offensive coordinator today, I probably would have laughed at you, and I would have probably blocked you on Twitter for telling me that. So anyway, what are your guys' thoughts on this hire? I don't think you could have drawn up a better replacement than Chip Kelly.
I mean, I think it's kind of an upgrade, honestly.
That's what I was going to say, yeah.
I mean, you got a guy, obviously proven head coach, a very, very talented offensive mind. I mean, he's going to have the whole tool chest to work with at Ohio State. So I'm super excited. I think it just kind of made the most sense too after Bill O'Brien to bring Chip Kelly in. Him and Ryan Day already have a really, really good relationship. Even further back to when Coach Day was playing, which I wasn't aware of that until I think TJ or Jordan might have said it. But I was like, that's kind of cool. So it's kind of Ryan Day is kind of Chip Kelly's protege, and now they're going to be working together. So it's going to work out really well, I think.
Yeah, I think Ryan Day was his quarterbacks coach in Philly and in San Francisco, and then he ended up joining Ohio State staff, and then he was also a quarterback for Chip Kelly at New Hampshire when Chip Kelly was a quarterbacks coach, I believe. So they have a long history. Chip Kelly kind of brings exactly what Bill O'Brien brought to the table in terms of the NFL experience, prior head coaching experience in college and in the NFL. He is a play caller, which was going to be Bill O'Brien taking over for Ryan Day. Believe it's the same scenario. Chip Kelly is going to be calling plays. This guy is one of the best play callers in college football history in terms of he's the godfather of the spread offense, essentially. This is the guy. His days in Oregon was kind of revolutionizing the RPO and things like that. So this is just like a dream made in heaven. He doesn't have to worry about the NIL. He doesn't have to worry about the head coaching duties. He left the Big Ten head coaching job with UCLA coming into the Big Ten next season to take this offensive coordinator job. I think it's just because the stress levels are going to be lower per se. He's coaching at Ohio State, but he's not dealing with as much. He doesn't have to worry about the defense. He can focus on the offense. Ryan Day gets a lot taken off of his plate in terms of play calling, and he can kind of be that CEO type head coach that we've been begging him to be the last couple of seasons. So perfect addition to the offensive side of the ball. And then we had some more coaching extensions and additions as well. So we can get into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we'll get into it in just a second. I mean, when you're looking at Chip Kelly, though, you're talking about not only the father of the spread offense, the one that basically made it what it is today. I mean, you're talking also one of the best run designers that there is in college football. I mean, when he designs a run game, it's been top 10 basically everywhere he's been. That's the biggest thing, I think, for Ohio State. And you have Quinshon Judkins, you have Travion Henderson, you have Dalen Hayden, you have Will Howard, who is going to run a decent amount this year as well. He has all the tools at his disposal. And this talent that he has, this is not UCLA. This is Ohio State. This compares to when he took Oregon to the national title game with Marcus Mariota. This team is loaded with talent. And for Chip Kelly, good for him, man. I mean, dude, you leave UCLA and you get to go be Ohio State's offensive coordinator and you take maybe a $3 million pay cut to do that. Like, that's not much for him. Like, I mean, considering all the money he's made throughout his career. But, yeah, great pickup for sure. JD, you kind of hinted at it. So we'll go into the new additions to the coaching staff. The other outside hire that was made recently, and this is interesting for a couple reasons. Ohio State hired former Michigan State and Seattle Seahawks pass rush specialist Brandon Jordan. He is going to be a defensive assistant. Now, why is this significant? He has worked with Cameron Hayward, TJ Watt, other NFL-level defensive linemen. He is known to be very, very solid recruiter, as he was at Michigan State. He's known to really be able to develop players very well. Guys, we might, you never want to look too far ahead because you just never know what's going to happen. They might have found their replacement for Larry Johnson, and they might have just hired him to the coaching staff. What do you guys think of the addition of Brandon Jordan? I think, like I said, a young guy, good on the recruiting trail. He's already worked with top-level NFL players. I think that's really going to build credibility for the rest. Not that Ohio State needed any more credibility, but you bring someone else with that type of pedigree, it's only going to help recruiting on the defensive line, which Ohio State has kind of struggled with the last couple of years.
Yeah, it was kind of the same thought I had when I read that we brought him in. Was we extended Larry Johnson through 25, so he's going to be here this year and next year at least. There's already been rumblings of him retiring for the last couple seasons, off seasons, and so I think they kind of went out, found a guy that can kind of be an understudy for a year or two and kind of work his way into that role. So yeah, I think you're right on with that, TJ.
Yeah, no doubt.
I think too, what you're getting, we've talked about for a while, like with Larry Johnson, the biggest thing that hurts Buckeyes on the recruiting trail is, and Nick Saban tried to use it with Edric Houston, but wasn't able to pull it off. They're telling recruits are being told that Larry Johnson is going to retire. And that's hurting them at recruiting at the defensive line position. So you bring in a guy like this that has the NFL experience, that is well respected, not only by NFL players, but around the rest of college football. It's going to really benefit the Buckeyes long-term. The other hire that is absolutely going to help the Buckeyes on the recruiting trail, and it might here within the month when Tavares TJ Alford, the four-star linebacker out of Florida, is supposed to commit. Got a great relationship with him. The Buckeyes hired James Laurinaitis to be a full-time assistant coach. He will be the linebackers coach. So, I mean, guys, talk about that hire. I think for a position the Buckeyes have not recruited real strongly at over the last couple of years, adding James Laurinaitis is just monumental for this coaching staff.
Well, and not only it's great to have him, but he understands what it takes to win at Ohio State. I feel like he was on a lot of really good teams, and he understands how important beating the team up north is. He understands how important it is to be a hard-nosed football team on the defensive side of the ball, and he's going to be great on the recruiting trail. I mean, he's young. He's going to be able to – he's a former player, so he can talk to these recruits hey, I've been here. I've done it. I played at the highest level. I was so excited when I finally heard that we finally hired him full-time, because I know there for a while we were just kind of waiting around and didn't really know. And there was some swirling of Mike Vrabel or something. I know we saw that something super quick. I was like, well, that'd be cool. But James Laurinaitis is, it's a home run to keep him in Columbus and give him a full-time job.
Yeah, and when they made that announcement that he was full-time, Ryan Day actually stated that his recruiting was part of the reason why they wanted him full-time. They said he's great on the trail. He really knows how to talk to the players. And he said that him and Brian Hartline have a really good relationship because they play together, and they can really recruit players well together. And so I think just having them both on each side of the ball, one of those guys that can relate to players. And like you said, be hey, I did it at Ohio State. I did it in the NFL, and I know the path. And that's a huge thing for these players, especially when they're coming to Ohio State, is they want to know, how can I get to the NFL? And these guys know how to do it.
I think the big thing that's really sticking out, we're seeing, at least since this hire, there are a lot of defensive recruits that have really taken notice that he is going to be a full-time coach. there are multiple linebackers since this was announced. It doesn't mean, of course, you're getting all of them. Let me just say that right now. But there are at least, I think, 3, maybe 4 that have announced their top 5, and Ohio State is in there, or their top 3, and Ohio State's in the top 3. So now you have someone that can bring in the top level recruits. The only question with Laurinaitis, I mean, it really is the only question mark, just because we don't know, is you can bring the guys in. Now, can you take that next step and develop that talent? I have no doubt he can, but I'm saying that's really the only question mark we have with him is, can he do that? Because he hasn't had to do that. That's really it. I mean, we know he can recruit. He might end up being one of the best defensive recruiters in college football now that he's really going to get that opportunity.
Let's just hope he can unlock CJ Hicks.
They talked about him recently too.
Yeah, he did. He's super excited to see like what he can do this year, and
they were saying that CJ has all the talent in the world. He just needs to stop thinking so much when he's playing football.
Yeah,
he just needs to unhitch the wagon and go full speed. And I think he'll get to that point. Young players kind of have struggles like that early on, but man, he's one of those guys that we're waiting on because he was such a highly touted recruit coming out. So
I think James is just going to bring so much energy, dude. Like he's going to be the guy in the locker room. If at halftime, if it was a crappy half, like he's going to let them know, like it's not acceptable at this, like at Ohio State. We can't do this. And I feel like at times it's lacked. This past season, there's times where physicality wasn't really all there, and I think he's gonna kind of bring that extra juice that the Buckeyes really need.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think it's much needed. Not that, of course, I believe they do have a lot of juice on the coaching staff, but when you bring in former players, it really helps. I mean, we've seen it kind of translate to the NFL as well, of course, with or Cleveland Browns bringing in former players. It really adds something. They understand what it means to be a Buckeye. Like knowing what it means to be a Buckeye and what it takes, I think that really helps adding that to the coaching staff. And now, I mean, you mentioned the other additions, JD, like contracts that we had. Tim Walton, of course, was promoted. He is now going to be the assistant head coach, which I think
assistant to the regional manager.
Dude, what's funny is I actually joked about that in a work meeting the other day. And I forget who I met with, but they absolutely loved it. So I'm glad you brought that up because it's so true. But Tim Walton got a 2-year extension until 2026. He's going to be the assistant head coach. What do you guys think about that? I mean, is Tim Walton – you know what? Here's a good question for you guys. Is Tim Walton now on the same level as Brian Hartline, or where do you think that stands?
I think so. I mean, gosh.
I wouldn't say he's on the same level. I would say he's getting there.
Yeah.
But I think he's like 95% of the reason Caleb Downs is a Buckeye right now. Just from what we've heard.
Huge reason.
Yeah, because it wasn't Downs' dad like super tight with him and stuff like that.
Downs and Tim Walton, like they're like best friends, I think, because they might have played together or something. Because keep in mind, Tim Walton has an NFL background. I mean, he coached under Urban Meyer in Jacksonville. He's coming from that NFL level. Right. And that's what guys see now that he's at Ohio State. He's also a former Buckeye. It's a match made in heaven. It really is.
Yeah. So I think he was a DB coach, and then now he's just full-time assistant head coach.
He's still going to be the cornerbacks coach.
I thought they might have removed that, or did they just add the assistant title to his extension?
They added the assistant title. So basically what this means is that I don't believe he could be hired not that he's going anywhere anyway, but I think now he can't be hired for a lateral move. So they would have to make him see now, like hypothetically, okay, let's say Georgia came after Tim Walton this offseason. You would have to promote Tim Walton, or Georgia could have offered him to be the assistant head coach, and they could get him away from Ohio State based off that. Ohio State adds that title to kind of help with that. I think the only thing that tops that is defensive coordinator. But, I mean, Tim Walton, let's be real, I don't think he's going anywhere. And even Jim Knowles is getting up there in age, so even if someday Jim Knowles retires, you could have potentially Tim Walton be DC if he wanted that job. So, I mean, you're kind of building a dream coaching staff. This is probably the best coaching staff Ryan Day's had since he's been here, I would say.
Yeah, so we extended him for 2 years.
Yep, correct.
We extended Larry Johnson for 2 seasons.
Yep.
We got Knowles locked up too, didn't we?
Jim Knowles is extended, and then tight end coach Keenan Bailey.
So I like the Knowles move just because in the last 2 seasons we've seen that defense really take
The jump.
two big steps.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's been phenomenal.
Here's a good question for you guys, because this is going to be a topic this offseason. Sonny Styles. Is Sonny Styles a linebacker, or are they going to keep him in the safety room? If you guys see Sonny Styles, by the way, the Buckeyes have been posting, dude, this man's going to be a linebacker. There's no way this guy's playing safety.
He's just going to play the whole field. Wherever they need him, that's where he's going to play.
He's going to be a weak side / strong safety type, run stopping. He can cover.
He's going to do everything.
He's going to be a hybrid JOK type player.
I like that.
But he's bigger.
Yeah.
A lot bigger, too.
I think he's definitely in the linebacker room, though. With the addition of Caleb Downs, that kind of solidifies that move. And Ohio State they've been talking about it, you know.
Laurinaitis has been talking about him being working linebackers. So
I feel like he's definitely gonna. I mean, I'm sure he'll sit in both meetings. You know, like if there's like individual player meetings, he might go to both. That's like bounce around a little, but they're definitely going to keep it open for his versatility because he can do so much.
With Ransom and Downs coming back, though, he's not going to get much way of snaps and the safety. So
that's fair.
Yeah. I mean, I am curious. Well, we'll talk transfer portal again when it opens in the spring. There was a Texas A&M safety that entered the portal. You almost want – they need another set. I mean, they like to play 3 safeties.
Yeah.
I know they got Hartford, but I just don't know if that's who they want to run as their third guy.
Yeah.
I wonder if they take a look at the kid from A&M. I saw something on an A&M account that said something about Ohio State. I don't know if it's going to happen, but just he was the top safety in last year's class outside of Caleb Downs. So I don't know. I mean, it's not like Tim Walton can't strike again. So
that secondary is insane, though. Denzel Burke, Igmanosin, Matthews as the nickel, I guess.
I looked at our depth, like our projected depth chart. I'm like, dude, we have dudes at every position.
Bro, our corners, you're not more than like in an ideal world, okay? Like, because let's be real, we don't want to see these guys because that means there was an injury. Ideal world, you get to redshirt Aaron Scott Jr., 5-star corner, Bryce West, 4-star corner, Miles Lockhart, I believe his name is, 4-star corner. You're redshirting 3 4-star corners right there. And then that doesn't even keep in account. I don't know how much Calvin Simpson Hunt is going to play this year. He's a former 4-star corner. How does Tim Walton match with Jermaine Matthews, Jordan Hancock, Denzel Burke? Because someone's the odd man out there. I think Hancock
bald too.
I forgot, dude.
I think Hancock's in the slot because he's your best slot corner. But then if you look at 2025, my gosh, even when you lose everybody, Aaron Scott Jr., Bryce West, Calvin Simpson Hunt, Miles Lockhart, now Devin Sanchez, Naheem Alford, 2 5-star corners. You're in the lead right now for another 5-star corner in Dorian Brew. And then you might add 2 or 3 of the best safeties in college football. I mean, in the recruiting class.
Awesome.
Dude. Oh, my. Man. What we're doing on the I'll say this. I don't think Tim Walton's there yet. If he puts together not only this class of 2025, but he loads up that class for 2026, he might be better in Heartline at that point. Because if you adding corners, I think is a lot more difficult than trying to add receivers.
Yeah,
there's a lot more elite receivers than there are elite corners.
Yeah,
I think.
I would agree with that.
You could also argue that Heartline develops those guys, though.
No, he does. Absolutely.
So I don't know. We'll get there. Yeah. So the CJ Hicks thing, Buckeye Mob 6 says, what does that mean for CJ Hicks? So CJ Hicks is kind of the third linebacker right now in terms of who's he behind? Sonny
behind Cody Simon. I think he's
Simon.
If
Yeah.
Styles gets moved, he's behind Sonny Styles. The thing is, though, like, dude, we need a linebacker that can cover somebody. I hope that's Styles, but dude, you cannot just get shredded in the middle of the field like we continuously.
Dude, I just have PTSD of that Bama national championship game. We have Tommy Eichenberg guarding Devontae Smith. I'm like,
bro,
it wasn't Tommy.
It was did he get drafted by the Saints?
It was Pete Warner.
It wasn't Pete Warner. It was the white Tough Borland.
Even worse.
Dude.
Yeah, Tough Borland are getting cooked by Devontae Smith in the slot.
That's just horrid.
PTSD. I'm just like, why is our linebacker guarding the fastest player on the field?
Dude. Like, we need a linebacker that can cover somebody.
Yeah.
Like, if you can cover, you should be on the field. Cody Simon can't cover anybody. I'm sorry. Sonny Styles, we don't know. He hasn't played linebacker. And then we don't know about CJ Hicks.
CJ Hicks so yeah.
CJ better figure it out. It's put up or shut up time.
We heard last year he was going to make an impact.
Back up that star rating. Come on, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Jermaine adds here, Jamie French is a Buckeye. I heard he's leaning that way. Yeah, for those who aren't aware, Jamie French, 5-star receiver in the class of 2025. I think he ends up at Ohio State. It's going to come down to the cash for sure. The Florida schools are pushing, so we'll see. I mean,
He's a Florida guy.
He's a Florida kid. He was originally committed to Bama and then decommitted. He was the first player to decommit when Nick Saban retired. But the Buckeyes that push for him. I think he ends up a Buckeye. We'll see. I mean, if we get him, great. If we don't, I'm not going to wallow about it. I mean, we'll get someone else anyway. So doesn't really worry me. We'll have a recruiting show at some point here this offseason. But as we're starting to wrap things up, kind of just want to give everyone a timeline, a little bit on what we're looking at here over the coming weeks. So next week, we're probably looking at talking about some of the best transfers from college football, like just around the country so far this year. And then the week after that, we're actually going to start our Big Ten 2024 season preview. We're going to go through all the Big Ten teams. Hopefully, we're going to get someone from each team. We're going to have them preview their team. So it's not going to be as much Ohio State talk, but what we wanted to do is give you guys the opportunity to learn about the Big Ten opponents, especially the teams that are leaving the Pac-12 and coming to the Big Ten. We really want to get hear from those guys to really just talk about what adjustments it's going to be for a school like a Pac-12 school coming to the Big Ten. It's a lot of spread out there in West Coast and coming to colder weather and really hard-nosed football out here. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. Guys, as we're wrapping things up, anything else you would like to add?
I got one. So we kind of briefly talked about it with Bill O'Brien leaving. Mm-hmm. One of the players that transferred was kind of attached to Bill O'Brien, and that was Julian Sayin. And so when we heard the news that Bill O'Brien had left for Boston College, my immediate reaction was, what's going to happen to Julian Sayin? Like, it isn't the whole reason he came to Ohio State because of Alabama. So if you want to kind of touch on that, TJ.
Yeah. I mean, just the short answer is he's not going anywhere. I think people also need to – there are a lot of fans – because I've seen people talk about it and talk about – Michigan fans are having this weird obsession with Caleb Downs after they criticized the Buckeyes for being desperate to get him, which is weird.
Dude, when you said that edit, I was so confused.
Dude, I was like, these people really are just having a rough – listen, I know they won the title, but these guys are having a rough offseason if they're obsessed with every player we're getting. Anyway, in short, you can't transfer more than once in a year, so he can't transfer. He's not going to go anywhere because Ohio State did want him, and Bill O'Brien recruited him at Bama, which is true, but also keep in mind, Bill O'Brien left for the NFL before Julian Sayin was even at Bama. So there's no real correlation there. Julian Sayin's the only way Sayin might go is if he doesn't win the job. I don't know what's going to happen in 2025, but that's the only case. He's not leaving to go to Boston College at this point. And even if Julian Saint entered the portal next year, I highly doubt he's going to go to Boston College. I think he'd go to a higher program than that. But, dude, I'm a guy sitting in a chair. I don't know.
You just are on the forums more than I am. So.
I just mean, like, I have no way of knowing if he does enter the portal, if he would go to Boston College. I don't think
I'm not inferring he would go to Boston College, but more so maybe
general.
Yeah, maybe somewhere else. And I think you're kind of right on that point. If he loses the job in 25 to Air Noland, maybe we have a different discussion.
Because keep in mind, bro, you also have Tavian St. Clair.
Exactly.
I'm telling you guys right now.
He might be
Buckeyes love Tavian St. Clair. Chip Kelly reached out to him as soon as he got hired, by the way, at Ohio State.
That's nice.
Tavian is going to get an opportunity here, I believe, at some point. That's unless Julian Saint or Aaron Nolan or just become Heisman level material, and then you just can't.
Where's he at?
Huh?
What school is he at?
Cali? He's in Cali?
No, he's in Ohio.
I'll say he's an
Ohio guy?
Ohio kid.
Yeah, so he goes to Belfonte.
Okay.
Belfontaine. My bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's right down the road from me.
Oh, that's up north. Okay.
Yeah.
He play his senior year, bro.
He's expected to be right now he's a 4. He'll be a 5-star quarterback here by the time the recruiting cycle's over. He for those who aren't familiar, he won the throwing competition in Vegas with all the top quarterbacks. He's a gunslinger, man, and he's athletic. He is our Justin Fields. I would say that's probably a really good comparison for him.
Okay.
From an athletic standpoint, and from a guy that is pretty polished already as a junior going into his senior year. So,
JD, yeah, we might have to make a little trip. I might have to make a little Friday night trip.
Yeah, let's do it.
See if we can interview him after a game. He does follow the show. So
absolutely.
Let's see. Well, guys, I appreciate everyone tuning in for episode number 47 of the Scarlet and Gray podcast. As always, guys, just take that quick second, drop that like on that video, subscribe if you are brand new to the channel as we are pushing for 3,000 subscribers. We will talk to you guys all again next week. And, of course, as always, go Buckeyes.